In this video, we're going to cover retrieving a score for our user. Sahha Scores are based on the information from device sensors sent via the SDK, as well as the provided demographic information for the user. I've added a second screen called Analyze, where we will be displaying the retrieved score and its accompanying data. I'm adding in a use state here to store our score data. Here, I'm going to add a function for getting a score for the past 24 hours. This is the default time period for analysis. The function calls its corresponding SDK method and stores the result. The SDK also provides you the option of requesting a series of scores for a given time period. Here, I'm going to add another function for getting a score for the past 7 days. This function calls the AnalyzeDateRange method from the SDK, passing in a starting point and an ending point. Now I'm going to add the UI elements for testing. I've added a button for each function and a text element for displaying the data we get back. I'm now running my app again to test out the new functions. First, I have to authenticate my user. Now I'm going to navigate to the Analyze screen. And now I can click on Past 24 hours to get my 24-hour analysis. Great, we can see the Sahha score generated for our user, as well as some useful accompanying data. It's important to note here that our models require data to generate scores. So if you're following along and you don't receive any scores, you may not have sent enough sensor data yet for a score to be generated. It's also important to note that scores are generated once every 24 hours. So if you have just started sending data, your first score may not have been generated yet. Let's head over to the Sahha Docs to get a better understanding of what this data means. We can see that our score is of type depression, which puts it in the mental health score category. As written in the docs, it predicts the current depression state of the user. As for the score itself, it is a number between 0 and 1 based on the severity of the condition, with 1 being the most severe. Our score has come back as 0.22. Next is the score state, which is a classification category for our score. None, low, medium, and high. We can see here that our score has a state of low, meaning relatively low levels of depression. Next is our explainability factors. Explainability factors are factors that have contributed to the score. The value of each factor represents the effect that the factor has had on the final score. We can see here that we have 4 different factors that have contributed to our depression score. The daily steps factor has increased the score with a value of 0.027, whereas the activity deviation factor has decreased the score with a value of negative 0.019. We can read explanations of each factor here in the Explainability Factors section of the docs. Finally, we can see here that our score has also come back with an input data property. This represents the data that was used to generate the score. In our case, the score has been generated using activity data, which is the data from our device pedometer, age, and gender, which is the demographic data we have added for our user. We now have a React Native app that can authenticate a user profile, post demographic data, access our device sensors, and generate scores based on the data collected.